It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end, and so that was that was by design for us to get back.
It was supposed to be boring. That's the part nobody is saying out loud, but everyone understands. These closed-door Team USA evaluation camps are designed to be controlled. Controlled access, controlled narratives, controlled hierarchies. The media waits outside, the fans get a neat little update later, and everybody goes home pretending nothing dramatic happened. But then the reports started whispering about one detail that didn't fit the script. The lights were still on, deep into the night. And while the building was supposed to be winding down, the people in charge weren't winding down at all. They were allegedly in a meeting that wasn't on the itinerary. Not a casual debrief. Not a good work today chat. Something sharper. Something urgent. And the reason, if you believe the leaks, wasn't a fight. It wasn't a blow-up. It wasn't even a bad practice. It was the opposite. It was one player showing, way too clearly, that the old pecking order might not survive the next 2 years. And that player was Caitlin Clark. But here's where it gets interesting, because this didn't start that night. That night was just the first time the whole machine had to admit what's been building for a while. For the last year and a half, the story around Caitlin has been two stories at the same time. One story is the obvious one. She's a star, a ratings magnet, a walking headline, the kind of player who doesn't just score points. She bends the entire sport toward her. People watch because she's on the screen. People argue because she's in the conversation. People buy tickets because she's in the building. But the other story is the one the establishment has tried to keep alive. She's not the centerpiece here. Not yet. That's been the tone since the Olympic decision that lit the internet on fire. The message from the old guard was basically this: relax. She's talented. She'll get her moment. But Team USA doesn't revolve around any one player. And when Team USA won gold anyway, that became the armor. See, winning has a way of making every argument feel proven, even if the situation is more complicated than that. When you win, you get to say you didn't need to change. You get to say the system works. You get to say the noise was just noise. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. Because after the snub, people waited for Caitlin to do what a lot of stars do when they feel disrespected. They waited for the quote, the subtle jab, the "I took it personally" moment, the social media breadcrumb trail, the interview where she lets just enough emotion slip out to turn the story into a full-blown feud. But what she did instead was quieter, colder even. She didn't give them a headline to fight. She didn't throw gasoline on the conversation. She just stepped out of the argument and let the work do the talking. And that's the part that should have made everybody nervous, because when a competitor stops talking, it doesn't mean they're over it. Sometimes it means they're loading the clip. Because by the time she showed up at this camp, if the people around the gym are telling the truth, she wasn't showing up as college Caitlin or even rookie Caitlin. She was showing up as a version that looked built for this exact environment. More strength, more control, more patience, and still that same gravity. That same threat from distances that most systems are not designed to guard. And when you put a player like that into a room where hierarchy matters, where roles are political, where veterans don't just lead on the court, they lead the culture, you get tension before the first whistle. Because this isn't just basketball. Not at that level. Not in that program. At that level, everything is a message. Who gets paired with who? Who gets the first reps? Who gets corrected loudly? Who gets corrected quietly? Who gets the easiest role? Who gets the prove yourself role? Who gets treated like a guest? And who gets treated like the future? And according to the chatter around this camp, the message started with something so small a casual fan might laugh at it. A jersey number. It sounds silly until you understand what numbers mean when a player's identity is tied to it. It's branding, sure. It's marketing. It's the thing people associate with you without even thinking. But in a place like Team USA, it's also a signal. A reminder, a little way of saying, this isn't your kingdom. And the claim is that Caitlin didn't get her iconic number. Instead, she got handed something else. And if you're the type of person who thinks, okay, so what? That's fair. On paper, it's just fabric. Just digits. Just a locker. But in reality, it's one of those moves that only exists for one reason, to establish who's in control. Because if you're trying to set the tone, you don't do it with something that can be argued in a meeting later. You do it with something that looks harmless, something deniable, something you can shrug off while everyone still understands exactly what you meant. And according to the people telling this story, Caitlin's response was the most dangerous kind. No complaint, no negotiation, no "hey, can I switch?" No cryptic post. She just put it on. And that's when the vibe changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just different. The kind of shift you notice when someone stops being friendly and starts being focused. The kind of shift that makes other pros go quiet, because they know what that look means. It means the game just became personal. The practice started like all practices start. Warm-ups, standard drills. The stuff that looks normal until you realize everyone is watching everything. And then came the scrimmage. And this is where it allegedly turns from tense into oh no. Because the way these camps often work, especially when you've got veterans and newer stars in the same gym, is that the scrimmage becomes a culture test. Not announced as one, but felt as one. The veterans play physical. They slow you down. They bump cutters. They deny easy catches. They force you into ugly possessions. They let you know the international style is different. They let you know you don't get to freelance. They let you know the program is bigger than your hype. It's a rite of passage. And it's worked for a long time. Because even great players can be made to look uncomfortable when you take away rhythm, when you crowd space, when you make every rep feel like a negotiation. But here's the issue. That method only works if the star agrees to play the game at your pace. And if the leaks are true, Caitlin didn't agree. In fact, the moment everybody keeps circling back to is a burst of basketball so fast it barely fits into a story. A little window of time that was allegedly under a minute. A sequence that didn't just score points. It made the people running the program realize they might not be able to run it the same way anymore. The veterans score first, the way veterans do. Physical, controlled, confident. The kind of bucket that says, "Welcome to our world." They get back. They set up. They expect the next possession to look familiar. Bring it up. Slow it down. Call something. Run the structure. And Caitlin takes the inbound and doesn't even glance at the sideline like she's asking permission. She goes. 3 dribbles and she's already over half court, and the defender, an elite defender, the kind of player who makes stars uncomfortable, gives her the tiniest sliver of space. Not much, just enough to respect the drive. And that's the mistake. Because from that far out, for most players, that's not open. That's don't even think about it. For her, that's oxygen. She rises. And the ball is already gone before the hand can really contest it. Net. And the gym doesn't react like a gym normally reacts to a deep 3. No bench explosion. No okay. No laughter. No jawing. Just silence. Because silence in a gym full of pros usually means one thing. Everybody just recalculated. But if the story ended there, it would just be a nice moment. A hot shot. A cool clip. It didn't end there. Next possession, the veterans try to impose themselves again. They go inside. They force the issue. And Caitlin reads it early. That's important, because one of the constant critiques about her has been what she can't do. What she needs to learn. What she'll get exposed for at the next level. The assumption has always been that if you make the game messy, she'll make mistakes. So when she jumps the passing lane, when she anticipates it, not guesses, when she takes it clean and turns it into instant transition, that's not just a steal. That's a rebuttal. She's gone, 2 defenders sprinting to cut her off, and the smart play is obvious. Slow down. Take the foul. Hit the trailer. Make it a normal possession. She doesn't make it normal. She stops on a dime at the line like she's hitting a brake pedal, and those defenders, they keep going. Momentum carries them right past the moment. And she buries another 3. 2 possessions. 2 deep shots. And the silence gets heavier, because now it's not an accident. Now it's a statement. And then comes the part that reportedly made it feel like the room tilted. The trap. This is where veteran teams love to teach lessons. Send 2 at the ball. Force the star to give it up. Make them prove they can handle pressure without panicking. It's the kind of move that has humbled plenty of players who thought they were ready. They spring it near half court. And Caitlin doesn't look trapped. She looks entertained. She splits it, again allegedly, with a move that makes both defenders collide into each other. And suddenly there's daylight where there shouldn't be any. And from a distance that coaches have spent their whole lives calling a bad shot, she drills a 3rd one. 3 straight. 9 points in a blink. And if you're imagining the gym going crazy, you're imagining the wrong gym. Because this wasn't a college arena. This was a room full of people whose identities are tied to the idea that the program is bigger than any one player. So instead of celebration, the reaction was reportedly closer to a funeral. Not because they were mad, because they understood. They understood what that style does to hierarchy. They understood what it means when one player can break your defensive rules without even needing teammates to create the advantage. They understood what it means when your structure depends on controlling tempo, and someone can speed it up whenever they want. That's why the sideline details are the part everyone keeps repeating. Because the claim isn't just that Caitlyn went on a run. The claim is that the people watching looked like they'd just seen the future arrive early. One of the most repeated little details, again, this is all based on chatter and alleged leaks, is that someone on the sideline didn't clap, didn't smile, didn't hype it up. They just stared. Clipboard energy. Evaluation energy. The kind of stare that says, okay, this changes everything. And then there's the other rumor. The one that gets people arguing instantly. The Diana Taurasi angle. Because whether you love her, hate her, respect her, fear her, whatever, Taurasi's reputation is simple. She's not intimidated. She doesn't back down. She answers. So when the whisper goes around that she didn't answer, when people claim she walked off, subbed out, sat down, stared at the floor, it hits like a shock because it suggests something that's hard to accept in real time. Not that she's done, not that she can't play, but that she recognized a shift. That the torch wasn't being handed over politely. It was being taken. And if you're a leader in that program, that's not just a basketball moment. That's a culture moment. Because now you've got a new era player who can bend the game, and an old era structure that's built on seniority, control, and do it the right way. So what do? If you're the coaching staff, you can't pretend you didn't see it. You can't unsee it. But you also can't just blow up decades of philosophy overnight without consequences. And that's why, if the story is accurate, the meeting wasn't scheduled for the next morning. It was immediate. Because the moment you let everyone go home and sit with it, the locker room starts forming its own opinions. Players start texting. Agents start hearing things. Stories start growing legs. And by the time you try to address it, you're already behind. So the alleged emergency isn't about the score of a scrimmage. It's about control, and specifically coaching control. Because if you zoom out, this isn't just Caitlyn versus veterans. It's not even Caitlyn versus a jersey number. It's Caitlyn versus a philosophy. A system-first approach that says, the structure is bigger than the star. The offense should be equal. The ball should move. Nobody should freelance. Everybody plays their role. That philosophy has produced dominance for a long time. But there's a hidden price. It assumes you can coach everyone the same way. It assumes the star should fit the program, not that the program should adapt to the star. And that assumption gets exposed when your best advantage comes from the exact thing your system tries to minimize. The gravity, the pace, the audacity, the deep range that stretches defenses until they snap. If you try to discipline that into something calmer, you might be making yourself easier to guard. That's the scary part. Because now you're not just deciding how to keep the locker room happy. You're deciding whether your identity is holding you back. And if you're the head coach, that's an uncomfortable place to stand. Correcting a defensive rotation is normal. Every player gets corrected. That's part of camp. But the story that really makes the rounds is what happens after a correction. Because the claim is that Caitlyn didn't react like a rookie trying to stay small. Didn't react like someone begging to belong. She locked eyes. She nodded. And then, on the next possession, she orchestrated a bucket that exploited a gap the coach either didn't see or couldn't stop. And whether that exact sequence happened or not, the message behind the rumor is what matters. The message is, I hear you, but I also see the game in a way that changes your options. That's not disrespect. That's power. And power is exactly what the program has always tried to manage carefully. Because the moment one player becomes bigger than the system has to either evolve or fight the inevitable. But there's another layer that makes this messier than basketball people want to admit. The business layer. The layer that decides what gets promoted, what gets televised, what gets packaged, what gets celebrated, and what gets quietly pushed aside. At this point, Caitlyn isn't just a player. She's an engine. She moves attention. She moves money. She moves casual fans toward women's basketball in a way that's rare. And when you become that, you don't just walk into a gym as another body. Even if someone wants you to. So imagine your USA basketball leadership, and you're sitting in a room after a scrimmage where a player just made your best defensive concept look outdated for 37 seconds straight. Now imagine you're also thinking about the next major tournament, the next marketing cycle, the next global stage where the world expects a show. You're thinking about what happens if you suppress her again. Because suppress doesn't even have to mean leaving her off the roster. It can be smaller than that. It can be minutes, role, usage, the subtle earn-it language that sounds fair but feels like a leash. And if the people around the camp are right, the fear is simple. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once the younger players in that gym see who the real offensive gravity is, once they see a trap get split and punished from logo range, once they see veteran confidence turn into veteran silence, they don't forget it. And the public doesn't forget it either. That's how eras change. Not with a press release. Not with a ceremony. With a moment that makes the room feel different. And that's why the jersey number detail matters so much in this story, even if it sounds petty. Because it's the perfect symbol of what they tried to do. Be one of the group. Fit into our thing. Tone it down. But if the story is real, that move didn't shrink her. It sharpened her. Because when you take away the comfort, when you remove the little signs that say we respect your status, you don't always humble the right person. Sometimes you motivate the wrong one. And from there, the rest of the night becomes a chess problem for the coaches. If you build the team around her strengths, you risk upsetting veterans who are used to the old way. If you don't build around her, you risk wasting the most dangerous weapon you have. And weapon is the right word, because basketball at that level is about advantages, and her advantage isn't subtle. It's range. It's tempo. It's the fact that a defender can be right and still be wrong, because one tiny mistake, one step too deep, one hesitation on a screen, one trap that doesn't perfectly connect, turns into 3 points instantly. And international competition is getting better. That's the other part nobody wants to say too loudly, because dominance is addictive. But the rest of the world has been closing the gap. More structure, more discipline, more chemistry, more players used to playing together. So the idea that Team USA can simply run the same formula forever is comforting. But comfort is usually where you get caught. Which brings us to the final detail that people love to repeat, because it's small, and it says everything. As the story goes, after the session, after the sweat, after the silence, after the alleged late-night leadership huddle, someone young in the gym asked Caitlin for something simple. An autograph. Shoes. A ball. Something like that. And the point isn't the autograph. The point is who the kid ran past to get to her. In a room full of legends, MVPs, gold medalists, icons, the gravity still pulled toward the person wearing the wrong number. And if that's true, it's a quiet reminder that hierarchy on paper doesn't always match hierarchy in reality. You can assign roles. You can assign numbers. You can assign messaging. But you can't assign gravity. Gravity is earned the hard way, through moments that people feel in their chest. And that's what this entire emergency meeting story really is. Not a scandal. Not a tantrum. Not a messy argument. It's the sound of a program realizing the next era might not wait politely for permission. Because the biggest misconception about the Caitlin Clark conversation is that it's just about points. It's not. It's about what her style forces everyone else to become. A team that plays slower around her is choosing to limit itself. A team that plays faster around her is choosing to evolve. And evolution always creates friction, because friction is what happens when the old shape can't contain the new reality. So if you're wondering why a late-night meeting would be labeled emergency, here's the simplest explanation. The emergency wasn't the practice. The emergency was the truth. The truth that the old way might be too slow. The truth that the next generation is watching. The truth that the public has already picked who it wants to see. And the truth that if Team USA tries to treat Caitlin Clark like just another piece, they might end up breaking the puzzle themselves. Because the era shift doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it announces itself with a silent gym. And the sound of the net snapping from 30 feet out. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we follow the whispers, decode the power moves, and explain what's really happening behind the clean public statements, hit subscribe right now. And if you've got a theory about what the emergency meeting was truly about, drop it in the comments, because the next twist in this story might already be loading.